is now been called the Embassy of Good Science. Consortium is a unique cooperation between media wiki experts, Gezin IT, renowned front-end developers, MOMCAI, and content experts from various European universities, Split, Leuven, Dublin, Amsterdam, Manchester, Oslo, Debrecen, Bonn, and Madrid. This results in an outstanding platform based on MediaWiki technology with a clear and attractive design and relevant content for research integrity in Europe and beyond. I especially welcome our work package leaders who will guide you through the 2 days. Marc van Hoof, Natalie Evans, Bert Gordijn, Chris Dieriks, and Anna Marusik, as well as Alexander Gezin on behalf of Gezin IT and David van Zegeren on behalf of MOMCAI. Welcome also to our support staff, Kim Zansvliet and Emma Mulder. I'm also very happy to welcome Julia Inguargiato, who has done an enormous amount of work for the project as scientific manager, but had to miss out on the last months due to illness. She's back now. Also a special word of welcome to the members of the advisory board, Maura Heine, Elizabeth Moylan, Nicole Furger, and Lex Bouter. And finally, the EU officers who have supported us during the project, Roberta Monicello, Lisa Diependale, and Dorian Karatsas. Welcome to all of you. Today we will present the platform with the latest features, and Marc van Hoof will do the presentation. We will discuss the relevance for training and education in a session shared by Natalie Evans, and the importance of cases and case scenarios in a session shared by Bert Gordijn. Tomorrow we will go into the relevance of the platform for guidelines and guidance, and the chair will be Chris Dieriks. We will also present the winners of the case scenario contest, and the chair of the jury, Mohammed Hosseini, will chair that session. Finally, we will discuss the future of the embassy, and that session will be shared by Anna Marusik. A lot of work has been done over the past 4.5 years. Many meetings in person and past years online, and now it's time to look at the results and look forward to the future. I wish you a very fruitful and inspiring conference. I give the floor to Marc van Hoof, who has proven to be able to unite the necessary competencies for this project, technology on the one hand, and thinking along with design, and certainly also with content on the other hand. Marc, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Guy, for the kind introduction. I'll now share my screen. If it's not clear for anyone, please give me a message, but I suppose it should be working all right. As Guy introduced, we've been working hard on the Embassy of Good Science for the last couple of years. Oh, there seems to be a problem. 1 second. Somehow my buttons aren't working. Now they are. Thank you, sorry. And today I will present the platform as it is today, and I will also share some new features we've been working on in the last 6 months. If we go back to the goal we initially had, it was to create a platform that makes the normative framework governing research ethics and integrity easy, accessible, and to support research and evaluation with all stakeholders in a participatory way to achieve sustainability. And hopefully today you will agree with me that we've come a long way towards this goal. And I present the end result, the platform, but as also Guy said, this is the work of many people. This is a photo of the beginning of the project. And as you can see, many of the people who were there today, were also there in the beginning, so which is a good sign. Basically, we had a strategy which consisted of 5 pillars. We wanted to structure an identity so that people would have a lasting experience, that they would remember the work we have been doing so that it's easier to apply in practice. And that was mainly the work of MOMCAI, together with, of course, all the participants within EnTIRE, to create that identity. So we wrote a declaration where we said that we wanted to take better care of good science. And this became the Embassy of Good Science. We also said, of course, that the content matters. And we wanted to, we were very ambitious. We wanted to create a lot of content and we wanted to have quality. So over the last years, we developed different templates to ensure that we have, to ensure that we have content which is relevant for people who are working with research ethics and integrity in daily practice, but also for educators and for people who want to investigate the subjects of research ethics and integrity. So we created teams, resources, trainings, and today I will present facts and figures, which are a new part of the platform, and a new community section. We created teams to capture backgrounds. So for people who didn't know a certain subject so that they could read and understand what it is about. We created resources which were mainly there to represent good content which is already out there, content which couldn't be changed. And we created trainings to help educators train others in research ethics and integrity. And one of the most striking differences between, for example, teams and resources is that teams were fully wiki enabled. So that means that the community themselves could edit teams and add new teams. So that it really reflects the community. Resources are more or less gathered from existing sources, but described. And trainings were developed newly, but could also use elements which are there today. So somehow my pointer, I've never had this problem before, but somehow my presentation doesn't want to go further. Oh, now it does work. We also worked on a platform to build a platform which has a good user experience. And we've done this in a way where we first designed the front end from the bottom up, so completely new. And this was mainly the work of Momkai, who thought about how should users interact with the platform and how should they get the information they are looking for or the educational tools they were looking for. And the identity together with the front-end design was really well done on a platform which is dedicated to share these types of creative initiatives. The Embassy of Good Science achieved almost 40,000 views, more than 2,500 likes, and a lot of discussion, as you can see in the bottom, on the Behance platform. But of course, creating something which is really nice on the outside is difficult to doing it well, but it's also important then to have a good backend. So to make sure that all the technology works. And this is something that Gezin has done for us. And they've done a great job in working with the ambitious designs Momkai created it and then implement them. And just for those of you who are not familiar with the Embassy of Good Science and who want to have an idea on how it looks, I just quickly have this video to show you how you can edit or add content.
Mark, is there also sound with this video or not?
Yes, there is.
But we don't hear it. Although it's already quite clear without sound, but I think it's more interesting if you, could you add the sound?
Yeah, let me see if I think it should now be working. Can you hear the sound? If I knew you didn't hear the sound, then I could have done it dynamically. As you can see, this is the video that was made by Astrid. It's really easy to add content and to edit it straight away. And you can see the results of edits also on the platform straight away without any interference from someone else. And this is something which wasn't there in the beginning and is quite unique on the internet. Of course, we all know Wikipedia who uses it. But for these types of projects, it's quite unique. And we managed to do this, I think, in a really easy way. So we'll move on to the next slide. If we look at the platform today, it has more than 1,000 pages of unique research ethics and research integrity content. And it was created by more than 8,000 edits. That's an average of 4 per day over the last year. We have 184 registered users and 21 of them contributed in the last month. If we look at the community, we initially envisioned that EnTIRE would create the platform, of course, and create the first content, and that along the way of the project, the community would take over and contributing. At the moment, we had 20 contributors approximately for 10,000 visitors a month, which we have today. So that means that we have approximately 2% of our users who actually contribute something. For Wikipedia, this figure is around 0.02%. So actually, this is quite a good number. Of course, if you look at the contributors, most of them are from our consortia, but we've had quite a few additions from outside. If we look at the numbers during the last year since the switch, we can see something very clearly. In the beginning, we had around a couple of dozen of visitors through Google every day, but over time, and especially in the spring, our numbers started to increase. And today, over 350 daily visitors, unique visitors, come through Google to the embassy. In total, during the last year, we had 34,000 visitors, and 1.5 million people have seen the embassy in their search hits when they were searching on Google. We initially envisioned in the beginning of the project that we would have around 60,000 visitors in total. So we had this number of 34,000 in the last year. But of course, the embassy has been live for 2 years before that. And also these numbers are only for Google. And we expect that around 30% of visitors visit the embassy directly. So that means that we have hit our target of 60,000 visitors throughout the project. If we look at our Twitter channel, we've seen that over the period of the project, we've acquired around 1,000 followers, and we had more than 200,000 impressions as well, and more than 500 mentions. And also in terms of numbers, this is relatively good for European funded projects. And this was, of course, mainly the work of Astrid, Talita, and Iris, who've done a great job over the last couple of years to have interesting content for Twitter. We also have a newsletter where people can subscribe. And because this is an action where people really have to deliberately leave their email address, it's also a good indicator of how interested people are. And we saw over the last year, especially, that we had a good increase. So we have around 700 subscribers to our newsletter. That means that if we give an update, 700 people get this. If we look at what content is successful, then mainly ethical items are most popular. So for example, Moral Dilemma is the most popular. We had 1,540 visitors in the last period who came by looking on Google for moral dilemmas. But also what stands out is that norms and values are important, and particular kinds of information which are not very well found elsewhere on the internet, such as the Mertonium norms, where we score relatively high in people who selectively go to the embassy. On the other way around, we can also look at where the opportunities lie, because for moral dilemma, still only approximately 1,500 out of 70,000 people visit the embassy. So there's still a large opportunity to increase the traffic to our website by focusing more on moral themes. As promised, I would also show you the new features we've been working on during the last 6 months. So first off, I will present the country report cards, as they've been called during the last couple of years. These are mainly the product of Anna's team in Croatia. And the goal was to have a mapping of research ethics and integrity across Europe. So really a fundamental item of EnTIRE. So I'll give you a live preview. The functionality is there online, and we'll enable it throughout this week. So I'll close my presentation. As you can see, it's in the same style as the rest of the platform. We also use a similar grouping, which you might recognize from teams, but where teams have parent teams, where you are able to subcategorize sub-teams. For the country report cards, we've decided to list everything alphabetically. So today we have 15 reports which are gathered here. And I will show, for example, Bulgaria. You'll see that we have a summary of the research infrastructure with tables explaining in detail the types of, for example, university they have per city. To keep everything lean and slim, we have tables which can expand so that you can look in detail on all of these institutes and visit them directly throughout the link. On the right side, you will notice that we have a table of contents so that you can quickly move over to things which are of interest to you. And here we also have the laws which are relevant for research ethics and integrity on the platform, which we've promised from the start. We are able to add guidelines which are specific to Bulgaria from this perspective, but we can also list them automatically. I will take an example. Let me see. And you can see also for Ireland, we have nice reports which have been developed by the team of Anna. And for Ireland, you can see that there are already guidelines which are specific only for Ireland. And these guidelines are added automatically. So this is no manual work, but it retrieves it from the database of the embassy. So if someone adds a new guideline and says it's relevant for Ireland, it also is automatically updated here. And this prevents us from having to update all parts of the platform manually. So this is a type of semantic linking in the background of the platform. Again, you'll also notice that we have the references as we have in the rest of the platform. and we credit our contributors the same way by showing who did what. And of course, as you know from the embassy, we want to have as much as possible things updatable so that if figures, for example, are updated, that you can edit them. And this is in the same way as for the rest of the platform. You can work with that straight away after logging in with ORCID. We also have a filter. For example, now all the countries which are included are based in Europe, but in the future, if we also have countries here with, which are outside of Europe, we can easily filter by specifying the where. And of course, you can add new reports as you're accustomed to the rest of the platform as well. Then we have a new feature. And as Mohammed tomorrow will show for the new educational scenarios contest, we also wanted to be able to have scenarios on the platform. We had cases, and within the cases section, we sometimes had fictional cases, but in order to specify this better, we created a separate category, which is called scenarios. The advantages, of course, is that if you want to have a scenario which you have adapted towards maybe a real case, is that you can simplify your teaching by simplifying the case. And this is already live today, and I'll show you. So you're used to having all types of resources, and what's different now is that you also have scenarios. And the team in Dublin already ensured that we have some initial content to work from. Again, you can go directly to the scenario which has been created, or you can read what it's about in the typical manner which we have on the embassy. And last but not least, is we've been working on replacing the discussion section on the embassy. As some of you may have noticed, there was still quite a barrier for people to share their thoughts on research ethics and integrity, which isn't that strange because it's a sensitive topic. So we wanted to decrease the barrier for people to participate. We renamed the discussion platform, and we made a deeper integration with the platform so that collaborating within the community, also with different projects and initiatives in a more easy way. And I'll show you. So here you would see that it's discussions, and this week is going to be replaced by this page, the community page. And I'll go through the community page one by one. First, we have the initiatives. And within the initiatives, we have projects that support research ethics and integrity. And what makes this special is that these projects, where also EnTIRE falls under, have the ability to upload their own news, their events, but also to store their documents. As you know, many of these projects have deliverables, and it's quite difficult for projects themselves to keep a website up on the long term. So we've enabled this on the embassy so that deliverables, for example, can be stored, or that publications can be stored and shared online. And it is really easy. You can just create a table like this and add the PDF files so that everything is easily accessible. We also have a news section. That means that if EnTIRE, for example, has an end conference, just as this, you can just create an event or a news item which you can share with others. We don't have currently a notification system to our users, but in the near future, we hope to have this enabled. And what you will also notice is that every project itself can have their own Twitter account. So projects can keep their own identity and share their own news and determine what is being shown on the embassy by just completing and managing their own Twitter accounts and by adding news. We also have the ability to hold an event. just like we have today, where you can have like a final conference. And we even have the ability to say that you're going, or that you're interested, or that you want to add this to your agenda, or that you can share this with others, for example, by email or by Twitter or by Facebook. And as you can see, you can also sign up. This is one part of the new community section. We also have the ability to only aggregate all the news. So for example, if EnTIRE and Virtue have different news items, they can combine them. And for people looking for news on the embassy, this is what they will see. They will see a page, which is again, very similar to the rest of the embassy, where there's an overview of all the recent news and all the different projects. For example, in this case, it's Virtue, it's Integrity. All their news items can be combined so that you can become quickly updated on the latest news. Then we have one more functionality. As you just saw, also projects can add their events, but we can also help initiatives share their events with others by the creation of this calendar. So you can quickly see what's relevant in the next couple of months. For example, today we have this event, the ENT conference, of course, and you're able to add new events, which you can then easily share with others. Go back to the presentation. So if we look back on the things that we've expected from the start, we also were afraid that a lot of people would misuse the embassy, that they would troll, as they say on the internet, post wrong information, remove parts, or do it in a graffiti kind of way. And if we look at the last year, there's only actually one tinkering event where someone just added a space to the page to see if it worked. And that's it. So most people behave really nicely on the embassy. And I think we would have expected a couple of more events, but I think that due to the ORCID integration, where it's coupled to everyone's own name, the validity of the content on the embassy and the trustworthiness is quite high. We can also look at what did happen. So we have an online platform full with unique content. It's searchable by search engines. We met the target number of visitors. It's fully open, so everyone can access it, can modify it. They can also gather the source code, which is on GitHub, so that they can create their own embassy if they wanted to. It's secure and up to date. We didn't have any breaches of our security. And as it is today, it's also welcome to host other initiatives out there. Of course, there's still a couple of things we can do and what we can improve in the future. As you saw in the search results, there's quite a big opportunity in on the internet. For example, for moral cases on the embassy, or other ethical topics and norms and values. We now have a percentage of 2% of people who visit the embassy actually edit the embassy. Of course, we hope that if the number of visitors increases, that we also replace the people who've been working on this within the project of EnTIRE the last couple of years. But due to the technical setup, of course, we have the time to let this grow over the future. We still have some minor bugs to fix in the near future. We want to improve our reference management some more, so that it becomes even easier to create new content on the embassy. And as you saw for the country report cards, we have this semantic linking, which makes it really easy for upkeep and of the content. But we, of course, hope to extend this to a larger part so that it becomes even quicker and easier to take care of all the content on the embassy. And we can improve the quality of our tagging somewhere, sometimes on the platform, so that we can even improve the searchability some more. And if there are any questions and discussion, then I think I would very much welcome that.
Thank you very much, Mark, for this overview. Looked excellent. I have one technical point before I give the floor to some questions. You mentioned 2% working actively, but I think I saw 0.2%, whereas 0.02% is then on the wiki.
I think maybe I made a mistake in my presentation, but it's 2%.
It is 2%. Okay.
Of our users are working.
Okay. Then I have a question. Jonathan Lewis asks, where are the report cards on the embassy? But I think you already explained that they will be visible end of the week. Am I correct?
Yes, they will be visible at end of the week. We have to change the navigational bar, but we want to migrate everything at once together with the community, so that if small errors creep in, that we can easily fix them. And today, due to the conference, it's a bit risky to do it at the same time. That's why we're doing it this week, but everything is ready. So
Jonathan, just a bit of wait a little bit, and you can watch them next in a couple of days. Iris Lechner asks, will it still be possible to ask questions on the platform? Because that was what the discussion section was about, or not? Can you say something about that, Mark?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, it's still possible to have a Q&A, but now we leave the Q&A to the initiatives, because we saw that if you're in a small group and you shield it also from the rest of the internet, which is functionality which is still there, then you can have a Q&A, but we just don't have a general Q&A anymore. So it's only specific, because we also saw, for example, for the Virtue project, that if shielded discussions were possible, then they were actively used. So we hope in this way to accommodate the projects themselves.
Actually, it seems then that you already start answering Gonzalo Cordova's question. Is there a way to interact anonymously, for instance, to report on research integrity issue or ask for advice? Am I correct that that's possible?
Yeah, so you have projects can have the ability to have a shielded part on the new community section, and they can determine if they want to share that only with a small subset of the community, and they can even shield it from the rest of the internet. So that's functionality which is built in. We do, of course, need to find out in what way it's beneficial for the larger community as well, because if everything is closed off, then that might not also be a good way. So there might be an in-between solution we're thinking about to, for example, have summaries of discussions available for everyone and in-depth discussions about particular cases which are shielded.
Okay. This is one example, and you already mentioned that, in which building such a platform brings in other things than you expect, because we thought, well, a discussion section that will be booming business for people for short questions. And in the beginning there were some, but it died down in the end, and it seems that the thematic pages are more interesting. And there we came with the idea to change this and have the community organize the discussions and not the platform organize the discussion. Maybe that's also a way to put it. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. There was also a question which now seems to have gone, but I noted it down from Krishma, which was I noted it down, but I cannot read it anymore. Krishma, can you put it again in the chat, please? When can we update the community pages? I think that was the question. Or who can update the community pages?
Yeah, so the plan now is that every initiative themselves will probably have one or two managers or moderators who can update their section of the community completely autonomously. So they would have access using their orchids, just like it is right now, to do this.
So anybody from the community can do this?
Yeah, but from that subset of the community. So for example, if someone just from the outside of the internet, if you don't want them to change something on your deliverables, which is more in the wiki way, this is not possible if you say it's not possible. So you have the autonomy to change these things for separate initiatives.
Okay. And then I see a question of Dorian Karatsas from the European Commission. can national projects, so projects not being funded by the EU, use the embassy and share their outputs? What would you say, Mark?
Yeah, so we have a certain model. So certain functionalities we keep for projects which we work intensively with, also to ensure that we can cover the upkeep of the embassy, so the cost for it. But in principle, every initiative can be created on the embassy, but they might have a different amount of opportunities.
That's brief, but well explained indeed. So everyone who wants to be visible as an initiative or every project, whatever background, can add their project as an initiative to the embassy. The embassy supports certain activities within the project if there is a real cooperation between the embassy and the project. So actually we have, in that sense, an open platform where everybody can join and everybody can add, but the embassy can help projects to be more clearly visible, to organize things, etc. But that's also for non-EU projects. Yeah. Okay. And there was a question on my side. You mentioned that there was one troll or one not clearly identifiable thing, and that was that somebody added a space to see whether they could do something, which they in the end didn't do. Okay, that's good. But suppose that something happens which is a bit less, let's say, or a bit more harmful. Can we repair such changes?
Yeah, we can. So we see all the changes which are being made, and actually everyone can see them because they're open. It uses the same Wikipedia technology. So, and it's just one click of the button and then it's reverted to its initial position. So it can be done really, really quick. And it's also easy, as I just said, around 4 edits are done every day. So what I usually do is I check the embassy every week, and then you can see if there are strange things happening, and then if necessary, you can revert it. But actually, I think I even didn't change this extra space back. I just left it be, but because it was the only thing.
Okay, but in principle, we are in control of potential harmful edits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you think, that's a question which has not been settled yet, so but it's more your personal opinion. Do you think we need sort of control board for that, or sort of editorial board? We now have an editorial board who stimulates people to add materials. But do we also need an editorial board for checking up on these issues?
Personally, it's a difficult question because this is a platform which is quite unique. There are no other comparisons other than Wikipedia, but also Wikipedia is from another time on the internet. It has been built in a time where people were engaged with the internet in a different way. So in general, if you are too strict with edits, then you would push people not to change things on the embassy. So I think it's important to strike a good balance between being strict or leaving it to the community. And so I think as long as you focus on improving it and making sure that additions are made because it's not up to date anymore, or there was a lack of certain information, then I think you should accept most additions. If it's a clear trolling event, of course, then you can deny it. And everything in between, you have to be very, very careful, because the community itself should also notice that something is strange, and then they can change it. And it might also be an incentive for other people to say, hey, this is strange, let me change that. So I think you do have to have some tolerance to it. And if this becomes really a problem, then another option would be to add a review function to the embassy, where you can see the notes of editors on how decisions were made, so that you make sure that this is also done in an open way.
Okay, thank you. we will still have to work on that, but these are good possible options. I see a question of Iris. Logging in with ORCID to add and edit content works really well. However, in the future, will it be possible to let content you edit show up on your ORCID page as well? This was a complex sentence. Did you get it?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. This of course would be ideal, because we also want to acknowledge the people who have been doing work on the embassy and show. And the other advantage is as soon as you push the contributions back to ORCID so that it registers in your ORCID profile, you also have the ability to cite from this within the scientific literature. So then the embassy becomes part of the scientific literature as well. So I think it will greatly benefit the position of the embassy as well. But this has some costs associated with it. And of course, also a technical implementation, which is necessary, both in the backend in the technology to push these types of things to ORCID, but also in the user friendliness so that people can control where they want to change their ORCID profiles. So it's simple in the way that it is very attractive, but it's a little bit more difficult to do this well. So it would require some new investments in the embassy to do this in a good way.
Yeah, we have thought about starting a project on this, but so far it was not possible. It didn't have that priority. By the way, we did let's say we did do new things compared to our original plan, like the facts and figures page and also the community page. I mean, it's section. How do you think that will continue in the future?
Of course, I'm very curious how it will develop, but I think there's a good ground, because we have approximately 350 visitors through Google a day, and this is a number which means that there will be people coming in, asking questions, making changes. So I think there's a good chance that that these types of developments will support that further, so that people start engaging even more in the near future. And I think it's important to keep that traction and that attention by developing new features which are important to the community. So I hope it's a natural way of developing in the next couple of years.
If I may briefly say something about the program of tomorrow. We have already been talking quite a lot about ambassadors of the embassy, people who think along and help to find out new ideas, new improvements. And tomorrow we will update you on that and also let you know who our first ambassadors are. But that's for tomorrow, not for today. But that's the way in which we could go on with this. Gonzalo Cordova asks, have you considered publishing interesting discussions or case analysis happening within the embassy? So publishing about what happens within the embassy.
So as of today, so with the new scenarios functionality, we also made a slight change in the cases representation on the embassy, because we are promoting case analysis tools. But as you said, we have considered doing the analysis directly online and even in an interactive way. But also using the functionality which we also use for the trainings with the step-by-step approach. So yes, we've given this some thought, and this is also an interesting avenue for further investigation in the future. But this is not something we've actively built prototypes for example.
Actually, the question now that I look again at it is also interesting, because it says, have you considered publishing discussions within the embassy? Yeah, actually publishing about discussions, or just make discussions visible on the embassy, because of course we see changes on the embassy. What do you think? Should we discuss about the embassy or should we discuss within the embassy?
Yeah, ideally, I think both. For both is an avenue as soon as they're, the advantage is, of course, that you get a lot of people who have certain ideas about cases. And nowadays, it's often just a select group of people who do such a case analysis. And I think just as like in a museum, a painting can have many, many meanings for different people. I think it's the same for cases. And I think these emotional components as well to these cases are very interesting to look at, both for publication and for on the embassy. So yeah, it's interesting.
But actually the most interesting thing then would be to have it visible on the embassy, what happens, and then maybe have a publication about that in a second line of thought.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Maybe one more remark as a chair. I see questions coming in, and then all of a sudden they are answered on the chat, and then they, or in the Q&A, and then they're gone. So maybe I can invite people not to answer questions, but add questions in the Q&A, or add aspects of questions. But because if I'm correct, an answered question is gone, and that was what happened to several questions already. So maybe that's for the next sessions. Please keep your questions open so that we can retrieve them and discuss them. One final point, and I think you already touched upon it, but I think it's also good to highlight it a bit more. There is this balance between the wiki system, which can be changed all the time, which is of course very good for certain kind of information. For instance, if new resource integrity things in a country happen, so that would be helpful that you can immediately change it through wiki. And of course, we also know that your EU projects and other projects, and maybe also other people, they have made their results visible, and they don't want their publications to be changed, or their deliverables to be changed. This balance, can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, this is a balance, of course, we've been thinking about since the start of the project, and it has given some discussion, of course. I think it's important to be sure that people can, initiatives themselves can determine if they want to have their content changed or not. When it comes down to more or less static content which is only relevant at that point in time, such as a deliverable. It represents the work that has been done up till that point, and it's a report. It's not something that should be changed. So that's what we enabled in the community function. You can have a repository of static content on the embassy today. On the other hand, there are a lot of teams such as authorship, which are really, really time sensitive in the way that how we view authorship 100 years ago is much different. It's very different from how we view it today. So there is a continuous development in it, and then it makes more sense to reflect that on the embassy so that you can also provoke discussion. So I think that those are the two ends of the scale, and then you have resources which are more or less in the middle. For example, the European Code of Conduct is a document which is relevant in a certain time area, but it's also closed down once there's a new one. For example, if there's a case which is being judged by a new version, then the newer version is relevant and not the old version. So then a resource should still be there covering that static content, but also should explain what's different in, for example, the latest version, what has changed. And I think the embassy now reflects that and does that in a good way, because it allows you to write what's relevant in those documents and why you should read them. And at the same time, it allows you to make sure that some things are just not changed.
Okay. So it is indeed good that we also have old versions of documents, certainly if there are important documents, so that we can go back to that. Thank you very much. Just to follow up on my own remark about the answered and not answered questions, the answered questions do remain, so you can again see them. I just didn't know that, but Mariette, thank you for that. We're at the end of this session. Marc, thank you very much for presenting the embassy, a bit of the history, certainly the structure, and also the new features which are coming up soon. So thank you for that. Thank you also for all your work you did in the past period for getting all this done by contacting all the relevant partners, both on the technical side, on the design side, and on the content side. So thank you very much. And we'll have a break until 5 minutes past 3. Thank you.